Miles Brent sighed to himself as he laid on the hard floor. This, this whole situation had him all but helpless, and after the initial panic, rage, and the entire emotional gauntlet that followed, he had grown pensive and considerate. Now his mind was running cold instead of hot, and he thought and recalled. The situation is easily summarized. He was one of the basic janitors that was being brought along for first contact, technically second but first face-to-face contact with alien life. Turns out that Earth and the entire solar system is smack dab inside some hellish patch of space that the Star Trek nerds had gotten everyone calling a negative space wedgie. Mostly because there seemed to be about 1 million different names for it, usually about 50 per alien language. So may as well start giving it a few of our own. Now what's the wedgie do? It completely screws up almost every law of physics needed for FTL and most of the basic ship systems required. Artificial gravity? The wedgie says no. Efficient life support? Wedgie no likey. Proper astrogation? With the wedgie you can't even trust your own eyes. Apparently the creme de la creme of the wedgie's effect is the ozone layer, which the other races call a naturally developed planetary disruption field. Rare in the galaxy and has all the effects of the rest of the wedgie concentrated and wrapped around our little blue ball of a planet, making the advanced technology needed extra impossible. About 3 years ago, the alien equivalent of the United Nations had managed to get a probe to Earth and start up contact with a very primitive AI that had been manually decoupled until a basic clockwork timer had plugged it in. They did this because their laws stated that anyone lost in anything like a wedgie was owed at least a rescue attempt by law, and that law had recently been bent in such a way that we counted. Anyways, the AI program, it was the alien equivalent of Reader Rabbit or some other child education game designed to help create specialized ships to get out of the wedgie. First problem was that trying to get anything with the engines needed for crude FTL through the ozone layer made a really big bang. We'd been warned about this from the program, so that first flight had been unmanned just to see how big a bang it would be. Most of the people that looked at it directly needed experimental optical surgery to see again. People like me that saw it through a recording were blinking spots out of their eyes for hours to come. Still, it was really neat to see a double-sided mushroom cloud. To cut out more of the bullshit, we built the thing in space, developed slingshot railguns with the help of the AI tech to throw things into orbit to cut down on cost. The way down still has a doozy of a first step, though. Then came manning the big, clunky beast of a ship. The program stated that for proper first contact, they wanted a large variety of every type of human around, so a lottery went out to each and every major population center, and I signed up. I got lucky, and they gave me my training. I'm called a janitor, but I'm also trained as a mechanic, soldier, and diplomat to some extent. A few friends I made during basic had joked that if we were separated or got bored, we had everything we needed to start our own rebellion on an alien world. Considering we were in gunsmithing class at the time, I had to agree. My role on the ship was to sit on my hands and hope to never need to come off them. The Dauntless has thousands like me, each one trained well enough to take over for an actual engineer, soldier, or diplomat. Though to be fair, the diplomatic training was mostly a crash course in the standard trade language that we didn't pass until we could go through an entire day being monitored without speaking anything but galactic trade. After that, there was required reading on numerous political texts with some final grade essays and 1,000-question quizzes that you had to get 90% or get sent for remedial training, which I had to do. Twice. Things had gone well at first. The Dauntless held up well, and the experimental technology, as well as the old standbys we were already familiar with, kept us safe and sound through the wedgie. Then we broke through the edge, and the ship nearly plowed through an observation post. After that slight debacle, we began to straight-up sail through the cosmos as we brought the separate pieces of the advanced equipment together, and the entire ship went from a gravity-less pain in the ass into a comparative luxury hotel with warp drives. We soared among our fellows for the first time. The scuttlebutt on the ship said that most of the aliens speaking to us through the comms not only looked humanish, but also gorgeous. Babes for days. Star Trek had gotten something else right. Then the pirates hit. Turns out that Galactic UN was just as useless as Earth UN. No standing army of its own and no official power. A massive advisory board with their heads up their asses and hoovering up the taxes. The escorts were basically the Salvation Army, and their own laws hadn't given them permission to teach us about weapons and armor. Our ship was basically a giant flying piece of armor due to the ablative plating needed for the wedgie, and we had snuck aboard a lot of missiles, guns, and torpedoes for our own paranoia. But when a battle fleet of raiders a few hundred strong drop on top of you, it really doesn't matter how much metal you've got or how much bigger you are, they're going to get at least a few drops of blood. Which leads to me, one of those few drops. My military training had given me the option of specialization, and I'd picked sniping. The idea of getting to play with one of the big guns that can still be used for something other than a war crime had appealed to me. The training where I had to shoot the thing with pinpoint accuracy while balancing a fucking coin on the gun was annoying as hell, though. This meant that when the boarding torpedoes that hit the Dauntless started puking out giant metal beasties, I quickly put my baby together, loaded up my favorite caliber of fuck you, and took just the right amount of time I needed to completely ruin a pirate's day. The hallways turned it all into a turkey shoot. Their weapons were effective for about 10 meters, and a range that short against my gun was just insulting. I managed to get about a dozen shots off, 3 confirmed as kills and the rest opening the idiots up for those with more close-range weaponry. The shotgun boys really had fun with face-to-face, and the grenadiers were pissy that they couldn't use their babies in the ship. Standard troopers had a standard good time, basic bitches. That's when the second volley of torpedoes came and opened up the wall to my immediate right. It bounced me off the one opposite, and by the time I could put 2 thoughts together, I only had time enough to look some energy weapon right down the shaft and eat a face full of electricity. I woke up in this tiny cube with a reinforced door worthy of a bulkhead and cool but not cold air. The vents are reinforced, magnetically sealed too, meaning I can't rip them out, on top of the fact that I'm clearly being watched. I'd patted myself down to check for what I had been left with. My clothes, which include a Kevlar weaved under vest, my steel-toed boots with hidden knives, and that's about it. They'd taken my baby, my sidearm, backup revolver, and the few grenades I had on me. It's the revolver that's pissing me off. That gun had been a gift from my father. Despite his divorce with Mom being bad, he still had the names of my entire immediate family burned into the wooden grip. A way to hold my family close even light years away. All around a cheesy but sweet gesture. I'm going to get my chance to escape soon. And when it comes, I have to be ready. When I get tired of lying around and waiting for something to happen, I sit up with my legs crossed. Sort of. During the combat training, they drilled us on some weird Eastern way of sitting that lets you rise up fast and stay solid the whole time. A neat trick, but the unarmed combat part of training had been really lacking for favor of guns, vehicle combat, and the sheer time limits of getting the project off the ground. The wait isn't much longer, just long enough to make me really wish there was a toilet regardless of the camera. As I'm contemplating pissing in the corner, the door opens, and the first thing I see is the same sort of sparking taser rifle that tagged me before. So they're not here for bullshit. That's just as useful as being sloppy. Someone sloppy you can get around easily. Someone paranoid you can drive insane. I slowly rise up, examining the armor up close for the first time. It's either a powerful and well-made robot or power armor. Bulky and angular, the thing has no obvious weaknesses from the front. Maybe the head part, shooting it with a sniper rifle, had disabled, if not killed, the others. The guns, if shot, end up overloading and paralyzing these things, meaning they're not shielded against their own weapons, opening them up for all sorts of fun. A bit of a mistake, really. It's painted mostly dark red with patches of black that have skulls and crossbones for some god-forsaken reason. There's what looks like a score tally across the left side of its chest. A chest that likely contains some kind of missile port or the big guns for the way it sticks out. "Come now!" It orders in a mechanical monotone, taking a step back and not giving me a chance. I step out, staring right at its head. At least I assume the chunk on the top with a glowing red sensor line is where the head is, or at least where whatever is controlling this thing is seeing me from. A sensor line surrounded by reflective material, meaning I've got a sort of plan. There's another of the big, stompy mechs with another sparky taser gun. It turns away from me and begins to move as the first one gestures for me to start moving with its weapon. I spot what looks like handholds in the back of the departing armor and can see a few seams. either for repair or to get a pilot in or out. It can still go either way, but I'm leaning more towards these things being piloted. I look over my shoulder and pay close attention to the reflection in the mech's sensor. I keep pace with wherever they're marching me to as I give them the best lazy eye I can. It takes only a few moments before the weapon is raised at me, but I refuse to react. Just keep pace and keep glaring. Stop staring over your shoulder at me, the mech pilot orders. This easily confirms that there's someone either in there or remote controlling it. A machine would take a lot longer to freak unless you had a weird AI in control. In response, I turn around and start walking backwards, not missing a step and not losing pace. With both my eyes digging holes through the suit's sensors, I can almost feel the pilot start to sweat. Whatever they expected out of me, this was not it. Good. Stop it, the pilot orders, and I slowly shake my head. Stop it, they order again. Are they really cracking this fast? I double the glare as best I can. If I was in a cartoon, my eyes would be stretching out of my head. Stop it! They scream so loudly I can hear it through the suit itself and the speaker. There's a woman in there. The gun starts to spark, and I slide to the side. The blast of electricity hits the other mech, and I throw myself forward to power slide between its legs, before turning around and climbing up the back with the handholds. The topmost one has a button in it, and it unlatches the panels in the back. No! The woman piloting the mech screeches in protest, flailing around and ripping a panel off the wall. My grip isn't all that good, and the moment the shock wears off, I'm dead, so I kick off and dash into the opening rather than fight a battle I'm slowly losing. My time in engineering training taught me what these are: a maintenance hallway. FTL-capable ships need a lot of wires and tubes going around for all the little systems that need to fire off perfectly, so many in fact that all the walls are pressed in by anywhere from a few feet to a few meters, usually a few meters. This one is a meters version, and I have room to dash down the maintenance hallway. I reach the small bulkhead with ladder that goes up and down the levels and quickly get myself down an entire segment of the ship. I seal it after me to buy a few more moments. Okay, now I'm in the guts of the place. I just need a map and a bathroom, and then I can really start raising hell.